Now I'm about to lay out a situation that in the grand scheme of things means nothing because we're all too busy living life, right? But if you're trying to pinpoint a problem, you need to pay attention to little things like this. Have you ever met somebody and it seems like within the first couple minutes or hour of meeting them, they've told you their whole life story? Or better yet, say for instance, you have a friend and then you have another set of friends and you introduce that friend to your other set of friends. And it seems like within the first hour or so, they're wanting to know the socials on everybody. Like, hey, they become Facebook friends. They're following them on Instagram and all this other stuff. And it's like, dang, that seems like a lot to just have met somebody, right? Now, you might fluff this off and say, that's nothing. But see, that's where you might be slipping because it's the little things like this that you need to pay attention to if you're going to discover or if you're going to pinpoint a problem. I ain't even involved in a situation like this, but to me, it seems clingy, seems needy. And to me, it has all the telltale signs of someone who suffers from codependency. My top 7 ways to identify codependency and how to overcome it. We're going to talk about it. Let's get it.
Thinking back to hard living and secular lines, dark to light, Mike Jack, I remember the time. So I welcome every exit that's forming in rhyme.
My name is Jermaine and thank y'all for joining us on That Christian Fam. If growing in the faith is important to you, hit that subscribe button because over here we like to encourage, empower, and give you everyday practical Christian advice on real life situations. We drop videos whenever we drop videos. So hit that notification bell because for the first hour, we respond to comments immediately. Shout out to Eve Epiphany, one of our faithful subscribers, for suggesting it or requesting this video. All right, y'all, we about to dive right into it. My top 7 ways to identify codependency and how to overcome it. Now listen, these are my top 7 ways. There's more, but listen, I'm not gonna go too deep because I ain't trying to be nobody's doctor. Let's jump into number 1. People who suffer from codependency oftentimes are people pleasers. Let's be honest, all of us want to be liked by people. And as Christians, we try our best to live at peace with all men. But there's a big difference between that and having this dire need to please people at all times. People pleasers oftentimes feel like it's their obligation to please people. And they have a very hard time with saying no, even when it's to their detriment. Number 2, they lack boundaries. People who suffer from codependency have a problem with establishing, recognizing, respecting, and even reinforcing boundaries. Basically, they have no use for boundaries. And when you mention the word boundary to them, they act like it's some foreign concept you got from the planet Mars and they get offended as if it's an attack on them. Having boundaries simply means you respect the other person's rights to have their own feelings and autonomy. It also frees you up from feeling like you're personally responsible for somebody else's happiness. Number 3, poor communication. People who are codependent have a hard time with communication. Oftentimes, codependents love to take on the role of a caretaker. And when they do that, they ignore their own wants or needs. And when they do recognize their own wants and needs, they're reluctant to express them in fear of upsetting the other person for asserting themselves. Here's the kicker though. Oftentimes when they do communicate, they're dishonest in order to maintain control over a relationship or situation. Number 4, lack of self-image. They often have low self-esteem or much of a self-image. They often make fun of themselves and put themselves down, not because it's entertaining or funny to them, but this is what they actually believe about themselves. The person that suffers from codependency often identifies or finds their identity in the role they play in the lives of others. Like I mentioned earlier, they take on the role of a caretaker. And even though the codependent is taking care of someone's practical needs, the truth of the matter, more oftentimes than not, that person could do well all by themselves without the caretaker, but the codependent cannot see that. Number 5, they live and die on the affirmation of others. Woo, that's a big one. You ever seen somebody on social media and it seems like they're constantly updating their profile pic, constantly taking selfies, this, that, and the other. Now listen, some of that is just straight up vanity, but oftentimes that's a person actually showing you that they want the affection and affirmation of others. And again, like I said at the beginning of the video, everybody wants to look cute. Everybody wants to look handsome, this, that, and the other. We get all that. But when it becomes an overkill, when you're constantly having to live off the affirmation of others, that's a telltale sign that somebody's a codependent. There's another part of this. They live their lives vicariously through other people. Man, that's deep. Listen, you ever met somebody who they don't have a life, but they ride the coattails of someone else close to them or someone else that they love? And if that person was stripped away from their lives, they would have no social life. They would have no life whatsoever. They live their lives vicariously through other people. And also, we've been talking about them being caregivers. They're not caregivers for the sake of the other person. They're caregivers for the sake of themselves. Almost like it's a self-serving act. They need to feel needed, and they will find a way to manipulate a situation to where you almost have to beg for their assistance, because it's not that they just want to assist, but they want you to know, or they want you to feel the need. No, let me get this right now. Wait a minute. They want to feel the need of being needed. Yeah, just like I said. I ain't editing this out. Y'all know what I'm saying. Number 6, they fail to make decisions in a relationship. And the reason why they fail to make decisions in a relationship is because if they make the wrong decision and it's bad, then they run the risk of the person being upset with them. Remember, that goes right back to what we talked about with the people pleasing. And this goes right into number 7. They have extreme relationship stress. In conjunction with other things I mentioned, having horrible communication or lack of respect for boundaries, you're bound to have relationship stress. The caretaker often feels the stress about doing things right. I'm not gonna go any further into that. Just know that if you don't communicate in a relationship, and when you have a tendency of manipulating a relationship, you're bound to have some problems. Now let's go into the suggestions on how we can fix this situation. My number 1 suggestion is to dive into God's word, especially the New Testament, because I truly believe that if people who are codependent and are believers in Jesus Christ actually understood the magnitude of love that God has for them, they wouldn't feel like they need the approval and affection and the affirmation of others in order to survive. Number 2, you have to embrace what I call the ugly. You have to understand that everybody liking you to a certain extent is unhealthy. There's always going to be that one person or group that just don't like you. No matter what you do, what you say, or how you say it, they're gonna find some way to just not like you. Why y'all think I end almost every single video with, I really don't care? And it's such a healthy headspace to be in my opinion, because I'm not shackled to the thoughts and opinions of other people. Now listen, to a certain degree, yes, you do have to care what people say, but you know exactly what I'm saying. When you get to a point to where you live on the acceptance and die from the rejection of others, that's a bad space to be in. Number 3, we really need to talk to God about it. One of the things that we need to understand is that we cannot underestimate the power and work of the Holy Ghost in our lives. One of the songs that comes to my mind is that old hymn, or I don't know if it's a hymn, but I know it's an old school song, y'all. It's What a Friend We Have in Jesus. And what it talks about in that song is what peace we often forfeit and things like that. And it's all because we do not take things to God in prayer. Never underestimate the power of God in your life. God can work things out. God can see things and work things out that you didn't think was even possible. But with God, all things are possible. Number 4, if you're suffering from codependency, you need to seek therapy. Listen, some people don't take medicine to this day because they believe that God is just going to always miraculously heal them. And guess what? He may. But what they fail to realize is that God heals people, but he often uses people to do it. The same scientists whether they're a believer or not, that came up with the medicine, God created the scientists. God gave the scientists the mind to make the medicine. Listen, I'm not going to go too deep into that, but just like we need medicine, we also need to learn how to talk to people who are professionals, who know how to diagnose situations and pinpoint some things that actually help us identify whether or not we are codependent. Because here's the thing, some of us may be codependents and we don't even realize it. And some of us realize that we're codependents, but we just don't care enough to go get therapy or go get help. You need to go see a licensed professional, because God may have gifted them with the mind to help you resolve some issues you've been trying to overcome your entire life, or help you unearth some situations or some issues you didn't even know you had. We got to kill this notion of therapy or medicine versus Christianity. Just because you take medicine or go get therapy talking to a licensed professional, it doesn't make you less of a Christian. This has been my top 7 ways to identify codependency and how we can overcome it. Thanks for watching. I hope I helped somebody on the other side of this video. And for all the trolls or anybody else, if you're offended, I really don't care.
All I want from the Almighty, long life and health. I seen a bunch of people with that short life and wealth. He became life, died so I could live, so I could never tell a person that I love them more than life itself.